Have you ever stared at your empty wallet and felt that heavy silence that comes when you realize you have no idea how to fix your life? That was Tom every single month. His life felt desolate, like a long road with no end in sight. Bills piled up, debts grew, and every time he thought he was catching up, something new dragged him back down. He wasn't lazy, he was simply stuck in a cycle of desperation that had become his normal. For 10 years, Tom lived like that. He borrowed from friends, begged for extensions, and smiled through the shame. His bank account was always near zero, and so was his confidence. He often told himself, "It'll get better one day." But deep down, he didn't believe it anymore. His life had turned bleak, a slow-motion replay of broken promises and postponed dreams. One evening, he sat at the kitchen table eating noodles from a cheap plastic bowl. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat across from him coloring. Out of nowhere, she looked up and asked, "Dad, why do you always ask other people for help?" Her voice was soft, but her words hit like a hammer. Tom froze. He didn't even know how to answer. He just stared at her, speechless, feeling something inside him crumble. That night, after she went to bed, he sat alone in the dark, her question echoing in his head. He felt a wave of remorse, not because she was wrong, but because she was right. For years, Tom had blamed everything else: the economy, his bad luck, his terrible boss. But that question forced him to face the truth. He had become destitute, not just financially, but mentally. He had given up ownership of his life without even realizing it. At 2 a.m, unable to sleep, he grabbed an old notebook and wrote one simple sentence: "Tomorrow, I start over." That sentence became his spark, his catalyst. The next morning, Tom took one single dollar, folded it carefully, and dropped it into an empty jar. "This," he whispered, "is my freedom jar." Lily watched him with curiosity. "Dad, why are you saving just $1? She asked. Tom smiled. "Because one day, this dollar will remind me that I never gave up." At first, it felt almost foolish. $1 a day couldn't change his situation. But every day he placed a dollar in that jar, something in him changed. That small act made him feel in control again. When co-workers invited him for coffee, he politely said no. When friends joked about his weird savings jar, he just smiled. He wasn't saving money, he was saving his dignity. Weeks passed, then months. The jar began to fill, and so did his spirit. He started watching videos about budgeting, saving, and small investments. He learned how to live on less, to plan instead of panic. The more he practiced, the lighter he felt. What started as a tiny habit turned into his personal renaissance, a quiet rebirth of the man he used to be before life wore him down. One day, his car broke down on the way to work. Normally, this would have been a crisis, but this time, Tom took a deep breath, opened his jar, and paid the mechanic in cash. No panic, no phone calls for help, just calm. For the first time in a decade, he didn't owe anyone anything. That simple moment filled him with yearning, a deep emotional longing to live differently, to keep going. 6 months later, Tom had saved $180. It wasn't much, but to him, it felt like a fortune. He took it to the bank and opened a savings account. The banker smiled and said, "Starting small?" Tom replied, "No, starting strong." That day, he walked out of the bank taller than he had ever felt. Over the next year, Tom changed completely. He started working extra shifts, fixing bicycles on weekends, and even helping neighbors for small fees. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was rebuilding. He paid off old debts one by one. The same people who once lent him money now came to him for advice. Lily noticed the change too. "Dad," she said one night, "you don't ask for help anymore." Tom smiled and kissed her forehead. "I realized something," he said. "When you stop waiting for someone to save you, you start saving yourself." Years later, Tom would look back at that night in the kitchen, the question, the shame, the silence, and realize it was the most important moment of his life. What once felt like affliction had become his motivation. His pain became his power. Today, he still drops $1 in a jar every morning. Not because he needs to, but because it reminds him of the man he promised to become. Financial freedom doesn't start with wealth. It starts with the courage to take one small step toward change, even when the world feels desolate.